Hey, here we go, Battle Rap Chris, BattleRap.com, here in, guess, I'll give you one guess. It's not Toronto, Ohio, it's Toronto, Ontario. We are here to talk about King of the Dots World Domination 6, August 26th and 27th for Day 1, Day 2. 25th is the press conference, 28th is Day 3. It's 4 days of Battle Rap insanity. We're going to talk about it. We're going to break down every single one of those matchups, but we're not going to do it here because it's fucking chaos. It's chaos. City Hall. Let's go somewhere less exciting, but get ready. Get your Cheetos. Get your whatever you do when you watch these blogs. Keep your pants on. Let's go. Hey, here we go. This is the first part of the blog. We're going to start talking about overall thoughts on the card. I think it's a pretty good card. I don't think it's the craziest card that's going to generate a ton of hype, and there aren't the biggest names. You don't have a Hitman, you don't have a Shoddy Hora, on this. But you do have a lot of guys who've proven themselves to A, show up, and B, try really hard. So I think that what we're going to get here is ultimately a whole bunch of really good battles rather than a whole bunch of really big battles. And ultimately I think that that's kind of better for battle rap in the long run. Is we always book these big names and the biggest battles of all time and generate all this hype, and then it ends up not living up to expectations. So I think this is probably a pretty good look. A good roster of about you got, I think, 20 battles, so that makes for 40 battle rappers from around the world. It's not the most international of flavors, but going back in all of the previous World Doms, it's only really a few international guys here and there anyways. Obviously North America is the easiest place to bring people in from, and it's also the biggest fan base, or at least the biggest fan base for English-speaking battle rap. I would have loved to see Oxymiron or Looney come out again, but I get that it's not the easiest thing to coordinate, especially with these guys who have busy schedules on their own. But we do have some really cool names that I'll get to kind of as we go battle by battle. But Toomey from South Africa, that's a super dope inclusion. Dundee from Australia has been a standout. We've had him in a few battles on the site already. And then we're also seeing a lot of Toronto debuts. We're seeing the Toronto debut of Madflex and Peanut, both from the West Coast, who've been killing it out there. So I think that that's kind of a treat for the Toronto crowd to see them. We're also seeing Elepsis making his main stage Toronto debut. He killed it at World Dom Day 3 last time, went viral with a round against Isaac Knox, where he battled both Isaac Knox and God. And arguably 3-0'd both. Woo! Am I going to get struck by lightning? Okay. But we'll talk about those battles as we go down the card. Ultimately, I think it's a cool card, and I'm looking forward to see a lot of these results. I think there's a lot of kind of slept-on things that at the end of the event, people will be like, wow, I didn't know Madflex was that good, or I'd never watched a Shoddy P battle before. That guy's killing it, that kind of stuff. So let's get into the first main event from the card. Whoop, 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 whoop. The first one, this is a big battle. This is Charlie Clips. He is arguably one of the most famous battle rappers in the world right now that he's on Wild 'N Out. He's been getting, a million views across his URL battles, across every battle, even when they're not necessarily that hot of a battle. Him and Suge got, I think, past 1 million views quite quickly, and it wasn't anything that crazy. And so the question here, this is Clips' first battle in Toronto since his battle against Sharona at Flatline 3, I believe. And he battled DNA, he battled Pass in those kind of lightweight well, I guess Pass wasn't a lightweight battle, but he battled at Massacre, kind of low stakes battles. And it's often in those battles, I think, that you could argue that he's having more fun because the stakes are lower, he's not taking it seriously, and I think that's when Clips actually shines. So I think people are going to expect him to bring a crazy performance, something crazy like what he did against Rex, because Solomon is such a legend, and Solomon has been killing it so much these days. But I think the best thing that Clips can do is kind of like not take it that seriously and do what he does best rather than try to like really bear down and go crazy. Because Solomon's going to go crazy regardless. I think Solomon has shown that he is one of the best in the world, and I think that a battle against Clips whether he wins it or has a debatable classic is a really big win for him. Who knows? I mean, you never know with Clips. He's able to kind of jump out of nowhere if he gets into the zone. But yeah, I think that that's going to be a cool battle. I wouldn't say get your hopes up for the battle of the year, but I think it could be good. I think that regardless of what Clips does, Solomon's going to be incredible in it. And that's, halfway to a classic right there. So let's see what happens. I'm going to call it Solomon 2-1. I think that's a safe bet. Nothing too crazy there. Let's go to another vantage point. Okay, the next main event we're going to talk about is Arsenal versus Cortez. I'm glad we're talking about this because it's a crazy battle. One of my favorites on the card, and kind of like a high-stakes battle, especially for Cortez, who is, I don't know if anyone's noticed, but kind of like making a push to be the new #1 contender in King of the Dot. So, especially if Roan retains, because Cortez and Caustic battled already a few years ago, so that kind of puts him lower on the ladder of people in contendership. But my point being that Cortez is kind of silently killing it. Again, arguably in the running for Battle Rapper of the Year. I'd say top 5, top 10 for sure. A guy who's been trying hard, who's been showing up, who's been showing out, and you could say he beat Big K recently. He had a battle in Beast Mode against Franchise that was a battle of the night, 2-1 either way. What else has he been doing? He battled Sharona for a nice battle at Blackout. But he's a guy who shows up with 3 rounds, shows up prepared, knows what he's doing, is a total professional, and is battling Arsenal, which is probably like his highest profile opponent in quite some time. Ars, regardless of how people feel about him now, I still think is one of the greatest of all time. And the second most viewed, he's just been dethroned by DNA as being the most viewed battle rapper in the English-speaking world. And, I think that Ars is going to be motivated here. It's been a while since he's battled. Especially, he did great against Head Ice on the same platform, the same stage. And, Cortez is a guy that I think he wants to beat. Likewise, Arsenal is a guy that Cortez wants to beat. So I think there's going to be animosity here, but, professionalism at the same time. And I think that they're both going to be just trying to disrespect each other, obviously. But I think that this is kind of... could be Arsenal's last King of the Dot battle. This is kind of his goodbye battle. I think he wants to say goodbye to the fans, say goodbye to the league, and do a proper send-off against, a high-profile battler opponent. This could be in pretty much any league around the world, so I think it's pretty cool that they're doing it in Toronto. That's that one. Okay, I didn't really call the last battle. I think it's such a toss-up. I'm going to say Arsenal 2-1. Now, Sharona versus Bonnie Godiva. This is a battle that I think has been booked for quite some time. It's definitely one of the first matchups that I heard kind of rumored going into, even the last event. So I think this is an interesting battle. I think it's a good battle for both of them in that it's an opponent kind of unlike what they've faced before. I don't know if it's going to be a good battle, but I think the Toronto crowd's going to like it. I think it's one of these battles that could be like a lowest common denominator battle with Sharona just being like, I never do something whatever for cunts like he did against Tarsi or with Tarsi. I'm going to retake this again. Yeah. I often don't know what I want to say until the second take. Oh, yeah? Yeah. Okay, I didn't call that last battle, but it's such a toss-up, I don't really need to. Let's say Arsenal 2-1 for posterity's sake. Next battle that we're going to talk about is Sharona versus Bonnie Godiva. It's a pretty good battle. I'm not super excited about it, but I think it's good that the two of them, have never really faced an opponent like each other. It's such a weird kind of matchup for them to be thrown against each other. But I think that they probably both want it. Bonnie has been looking for higher and higher profile opponents, and I think Sharona is pretty much as high as it gets, or close to as high as it gets in that King of the Dot roster. And Sharona, he's battled all these different people, and I think that it's kind of a good look for him to take someone completely different who is a woman. Now, because of that, we could see very much like a lowest common denominator battle where Sharona's just like, I never do whatever for cunts, or whatever he's going to say to spin it his classic line. or it's just going to be get me a sandwich, all this kind of stuff. And with Bonnie, I can picture her being using a lot of kind of like clowning, you're a virgin and you can never have this. But I think that, you know, that's kind of what the Toronto crowd loves, frankly. They love that kind of lowest common denominator humor, and I think it's going to go over well, definitely in the building. Whether or not people like it on the pay-per-view, we shall see. But I think it's going to be a competitive battle, and it should have some humor and some kind of viciousness to it. So I'm going to say, I don't know. It's hard to... What the fuck's the point of a battle rap prediction, really? Other than you can look at it and see how many you got right. I'm going to say Bonnie Godiva 2-1. Let's go with the gut. Moving on down the day one card, 100 Bullets versus Real Deal. I think this is another good kind of throw these guys together. It's a matchup that makes sense, but that I'd never really thought about before. They're two guys that I think have talent. It's kind of tough for them. They've always said, oh, you know, they want bigger names, they want bigger opponents, but they don't always get them or ever get them. So I think this is great where it's two guys kind of along the same level of kind of the ladder facing off against each other. Very different styles, but I think that what both of them have been doing more and more, and what's really been benefiting them more and more, is that they've been using kind of more of a loose personality, more of loose humor. It's worked really, really well for Bullets in Don't Flop, and I think it's worked really well for Real Deal in URL. So hopefully they can bring that to the King of the Dot stage here. I'm gonna say Real Deal 2-1. Moving on down, Peanut versus Shoddy P. This is a really, really exciting battle. Peanut's Toronto debut versus Shoddy P out of Detroit. Peanut has been killing it, you know, since the Grind Time days. He battled DNA like 8 years ago. And for the two of them to be facing off, it's funny because like Peanut's I think a lot of people consider him an up-and-comer, and he definitely is up-and-coming, but he's still a veteran at the same time. Whereas Shoddy P is a guy who has been making those moves. He went through GZ. He's been taking any opponents. He's been, you know, bringing Toronto-tailored content, and has been getting more and more fans, both in Toronto, in Detroit and Michigan battle rap scene, and then just like more and more people. He's impressing people, and I think that's great. So this is two of the more promising slept-on talents facing off against each other, and I think that Peanut's lyricism is going to make the difference here. I think that Shoddy P is lyrical and has good content, but I think Peanut is really like one of the better writers in the scene right now, and he's been on such a tear that you know, I'm going to call it, not going to like this, I'm going to call it Peanut 3-0. Should we do two more? There's two more. I can do them quick. Let's do them quick. We'll keep all this. Elepsis versus Quill. This is another really kind of cool card, cool battle that I don't think will necessarily like generate a million views or anything, but you never know with Elepsis because he's had two different battles go viral. One against the Isaac Knox. I can't remember if I mentioned that or if we cut that out at one point, but him and Isaac Knox went viral, and then there was another one. It was just like kid in schoolyard does rap battle, and that was Elepsis, and I think he did, you know, a crazy amount of views on YouTube. Quill, this is, I believe, his second performance here. He battled J-Pro at Blackout in kind of a so-so battle, but I think that, you know, he's kind of found his legs a little bit more. And it's been a while since he battled. There's something going on with him and Don't Flop, or him and I think more specifically. I don't know. I haven't really looked into all that drama, but I think that there's a good chance that, you know, Quill will make a statement or do something controversial. I think that the Don't Flop fans still rock with him because I think he is, you know, a talented guy and a charismatic personality. And I think that it's kind of two sides of the same coin, and that Quill and Elepsis are both really strong writers. But Elepsis kind of plays up his kind of like awkwardness, and Quill kind of plays up his like coolness. So I think that as opposites, that actually works out as a really interesting matchup. I don't know. I mean, it's such a hard one to predict. Again, it's like, will Elepsis's superior writing outshine Quill's superior stage presence? I don't know. We'll see. Either way, that could happen. And the last one that we're going to talk about, but the first one on the card, is Realistic versus Dundee. This is Dundee from Australia. It's been a while since we've had an Australian battler come to Toronto and show out. In the first few World Dominations, they were a mainstay. You had who's the famous one? 360, yeah. So you had 360 coming out, and now he's super famous, at least in Australia. And you had Manas, you had Anecdote coming out for the first few, and the Australian scene has kind of like slowed down a little bit. Definitely quieter, but in the last few months we're seeing this kind of resurgence. Don't Flop is bringing Don't Flop Oz back with Chris Codex down there. I don't know what his rap name is, but he's working, and they brought out Shuffle, they brought out Lucifer. So there's kind of like this like impending resurgence of the Australian scene. There's also I think what are they called? Real Talk Battles. They're still down there. They're putting on a big card, I think also in September. That I'm sure will be on the site. They've got E. Farrell going down there, and I think like Thesaurus, and I might be wrong, but I think the Disaster's going there for that. But I digress. My point is Dundee is a funny guy, and he's got a good presence, and I think like him and Realistic are a good matchup for each other, in that they're both kind of like burly, kind of tough guys, or really tough. I don't know. I'm gonna have to fight them now. But they're, that's kind of their persona, is that they are like strong arm, threatening guys. Whereas Dundee, I think, does that with a bit more kind of tongue-in-cheek humor, which often is what makes the difference, especially against a guy like Realistic, who, is serious. I think that there is a lighter side to him, but, he is kind of like, stoic in the ring. But again, I think this is a good look for Realistic. He's a guy who's been grinding for so long, and he's had so many no-shows that, he's there, and he's bringing 3 rounds, and he's prepared. And, for him to be on this platform against, arguably like a nobody, but the fact that at the end of it, it might be somebody. So I think this is a good opportunity. That's day one. A little bit of humor, some big battles, some small battles, some up-and-comers, some established talents, huge names like Solomon and Clips. I think that's a pretty good day. Let's move on to day 2.